Titilayo Onyison. Now, today we're talking about the impact of blockchain technology on remittances and cross-border transactions. Now, these play a crucial role in connecting individuals, families, and businesses across the globe. However, the traditional systems of governing these transactions have long been associated with really high costs. It's been associated with delays and often lack of transparency. But never fear, blockchain technology is here. It's emerged as a disruptive force, revolutionizing the way we send and receive money internationally. And today we are privileged to be joined by Chinonso. Chinonso is here and he is a Web3 enthusiast and he's a writer. And he is an avid enthusiast. Let me put it that way. He spends a lot of his time pursuing DeFi, and he's written amazing articles for CoinTelegraph and even Hackernoon. It's great to have you on the show today, Chinonso Okonkwo.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, they do say the real enthusiasts when it comes to Web3 are usually behind the scenes. You don't really hear from them that much, but you've been doing quite a bit of writing on these issues. And I would love it if you could let us in on exactly how this all started for you before we jump into the topic. Talk to us, Chinonso.
Oh, okay, that's great. So, I think it was in late 2020 or early 2020. After the lockdown, we're all indoors, so I saved quite a bit. So I reached out to my friend. I was like, okay, I'm thinking of how to invest this money. Do you have ideas on what I could do with this money? Because it was quite an amount. And he said, have you thought about buying Ethereum? And I was like, okay, I've been hearing about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like, what are these exactly? Because you don't want to invest in something you're not very familiar with. So he gave me a quick rundown. Okay, this is what Ethereum is, this is what Bitcoin is, and this is where you can buy them. But as a writer and researcher, one thing I love doing is I like to do my own research and find information on my own. So I got into Web3. I bought Ethereum then just before the bull run, and I rode it all the way through the bull run. And then when the first crash of 2021 happened in April and May, and people started leaving, I was like, nah, I'm not leaving. Like, this industry has been around for like 10 years, and I just found out. And you're expecting to leave after 6 months. It's not happening. Like, we need to know what this industry is about. So I got into crypto, I got into DeFi because I made most of my money then from DeFi, like from BSC season when we were like minting meme coins and stuff. So after that, I basically took it up from there and got to where I am right now. So it started from trying to save, make an investment, and then I became more intrigued about the whole concept of cryptocurrencies and Web3 in general. Like, for me, it was not just a get rich quick scheme and then get out. There was more to it than just making quick cash and jumping out.
I'm pleased you said that because everyone's story is different, but then there are some similar cases, and everyone sort of just found their way in somehow. But then some people took it further. And now on the show, I've already mentioned that you've written quite a few articles on Web3, on DeFi, and even in Finder and Hackernoon. And I want to jump straight into the issue of the impact of blockchain technology now, especially with this issue of cross-border remittances. Now, there have been challenges with this in the past. Can you sort of give us a layman's breakdown of what those challenges are?
Well, for starters, let's assume you're in Nigeria here, right? And then you have a family in the US and they want to send you money. Now, in the past, they would send this money either through Western Union or through MoneyGram. And some of the challenges it face are, first of all, it takes quite a long time for this money to reflect in your account. It takes up to 2-3 weeks. And then when it does reflect in your account, there are charges that the person would have to pay. And then you'd have to go to this bank with proper identification to prove that this money was actually meant for you. And all this takes a lot of time. But blockchain and cryptocurrencies have changed that in a very drastic way. The waiting time, the ID thingy, and Okay, I remember in 2013 when I got my first Western Union from someone in the UK. It took a month for that money to reflect. And when I got to the bank, they told me they don't even have the currency because the money was in pounds. And they said they couldn't pay me because they didn't have pounds. So I had to like keep coming back to the bank till I was like, finally, you know what, don't worry, just pay me whatever currency you have. And they had to pay me naira. They converted it to naira and paid me something like that. So these are some of the challenges that people face when they have to get remittances through the traditional means, the waiting time, the unavailability of forex at the bank. You have to provide IDs, and the fees are quite high. Now, for regular remittances, the fees are quite higher in sub-Saharan Africa than in other parts of the world. I checked before I got on this show. I checked some of the fees, and a data from I think World Bank showed that people in Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria pay as much as 35% fees on remittances. So if someone sends you $100, you're probably going to pay as much as $20, $30 on fees just to get this money, which is quite a bit.
Mm, mm. And the issue now is we've discovered that it is obviously a little easier, based on some real world examples you've already started giving, to have successful blockchain based remittances.
Mhm.
But we need to break down how this works. So for someone who's just hearing about this for the first time, how would they make it work, and what is their expectation?
Well, blockchain technology we're still in this early phase of development, so it's not quite so easy for someone like the first time. I remember when I got into cryptocurrencies, it took me a while to get used to using exchanges and wallets. But once you get past that, there isn't much really to hinder you anymore. So if you're getting into blockchain and you want to use it as a medium to receive remittances, the first thing you need is a wallet. There are different types of wallets out there, software wallets, hardware wallets. You can download them to your mobile phones and register. And registrations do not require a lot of identification for wallets. They send you a code which we call your seed phrase. This seed phrase is like your password. It's the only person that knows this seed phrase. So if you lose it, that wallet is gone. Now with this seed phrase, you can enter a wallet and copy your wallet address and send to the person that wants to send you money. With this wallet address, anybody, anywhere in the world can send you money directly to your account and you receive it within minutes. It's cheap, it's fast, it's transparent, and it cuts out the middleman. So you don't have to deal with the banks or financial institutions. You're dealing with the person directly. It's like a peer-to-peer ecosystem. So that's how to get started. But if you don't want to go through the wallet route, which might be a bit complicated for non-tech savvy people, maybe older people, you may want to use exchanges. There are lots of exchanges here right now in the market that help people with remittances.
Mm,
I remember there's BitPesa. In Nigeria recently, we had the Patricia that sponsored BB Nigeria. We have these exchanges that are much easier to register on, and you receive your remittances through them. Quite easy.
okay, I appreciate you breaking it down that way, and I feel like when I first of all came across wallets and the like, the issue of hash keys and QR codes and all that was still far from us, but now QR codes are being used for almost everything. Every website now has a QR code. You
Mhm.
can even scan your QR code on your WhatsApp to connect your WhatsApp to your computer and the like. So I think we are a little bit closer to that technology than we've been in the past 5 years. But now the issue has always been security, you know, when it comes to making sure that these transactions are honestly immutable and secure. Um, how do we break it down for the layman? That's one. Then two, why is it that it's been working for so long, but people do not trust the system yet? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's actually a very good question. So first, the one about security, I would say I don't think there's any financial system out there in the world that's completely foolproof. Yeah, sorry, that's completely fail safe rather. but they just probably have things in place to remedy the situation when it goes bust. In the case of cryptocurrencies and wallets, we always emphasize that users should take good care of their seed phrase, which is what gives someone access to that account. And then the type of activity you carry out on that account might put your account at risk. For instance, if you have a wallet for receiving remittances alone, it's best to keep it for just receiving remittances. If you start using the wallet to engage in certain types of trades that might expose you to harmful websites, now these harmful websites put the funds in that account at risk. You understand? So it's very important that when you're operating with an account and you probably want to use it just for remittances, it's important to keep it for remittances alone and you safeguard your seed phrase. If a user can do these two things, then the chances of a security breach are very, very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. Then to the second question about the difficulty and why people are just getting to hear about it. We're talking about an industry that is barely 15 years old. And people tend to be very cynical when things involving money are like preached to them. There's this new app that you can keep your money safe. They'll be like, what's wrong with my normal the traditional financial systems that I use? Like my bank works fine, my bank app works fine. I make transfers when I want. So why do I want to risk moving my assets to a new financial system that is still very abstract to me? And the anonymity of cryptocurrencies and blockchain is like a double-edged sword. So because it's anonymous, it gives people the privacy they want, but at the same time, it makes some people uneasy about the thought of moving their assets to a system where you can't meet a manager, there's no customer service, it's just you and the internet and the blockchain rather. So a lot of people are uneasy about moving into that kind of ecosystem. Understand? So I think these are the these are like the two challenges why, despite being 15 years old and being out there, people are still reluctant to give
So
cryptocurrencies
I've
a
always felt I've always felt it has something to do with people always wanting someone to blame, someone to be held responsible should they make a
exactly.
mistake. And
Mm-hmm.
we're still living in a time where no matter how many adverts the banks put up saying that you should not share your PIN with anyone, people still give
Yeah.
their ATM card pins to people. And then when things go awry, they they blame the bank. They go for the
Mm-hmm.
bank, and then they. But once you've developed a system where you are, secure and you make sure your keys are with you and you alone, I believe yes. If once you have a handle on all that, the security is you, and you are the security.
Yeah.
But let's not tackle people here, because I actually get very upset when people say, that their accounts were, this, or accounts were that. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying that there's some errors that some people have made in the past that they shouldn't have. Now,
Yeah.
blockchain itself as a technology, um, you know when it comes to regulation, that is a major hurdle a lot of countries are facing around the world. Let's
Yeah.
talk a bit about regulation, especially with these cross-border transactions. I'm thinking about the fact that there has to be some kind of regulation or some kind of guidelines in place by regulatory bodies, maybe internationally speaking. Do you know of any, and any country where it's worked before? How would that work if it was to happen in Nigeria?
Oof. Now, blockchain regulation is one topic that we could talk about all day and talk about the pros and cons. But I think beneath all the bluster and counter arguments, there are some salient points to look at. Now, regulation would definitely have some positive impacts on the ecosystem because it will bring more trust and people would feel more confident throwing money at a system they feel is regulated. But while trying to regulate the system, we also have to be careful not to make it become too centralized, because that kills the purpose of blockchain technology. It's meant to be decentralized and immune to government oversight too much. The whole advantage of blockchain technology is the government can't get to my Bitcoin, right? The government can't freeze my accounts on the blockchain. But when we give too much power to regulatory bodies to regulate the industry, then there's the fear of things like this happening. About regulations, I know of one or two regulations regarding cryptocurrencies and crypto transactions. For I think I can't get one or two of them off of my head right now, but I know I know the US has regulations set on certain cryptocurrencies which they feel like are securities, and even recently when there was a court settlement regarding Ripple and the US um, um, Securities Exchange, I think SEC, in which the court found out that Ripple is not a security, and as such, there can't be regulations on it as an asset. Like there's still a lot of gray areas in cryptocurrencies that we've not like adequately addressed,
Mm.
and I feel it should be an ongoing conversation instead of just handing the baton completely to government and regulatory bodies to say, you know what, just be the ones to make the rules. And because if we do that, then it becomes counterproductive, and we just simply move back to a regulated financial ecosystem where the government has a say on everything and anything.
I would love to talk a bit about this article you put together. This is on on Cointelegraph, and
Yeah,
you talked a bit about blockchain based replacement for traditional crowdfunding.
yeah,
There were crowdfunding became a very big deal about 5 to 6 years ago with
mhm,
platforms like GoFundMe, but they all connected to other financial platforms like PayPal and even banks and some credit card companies to make that work. So, how is blockchain technology, in the easiest and most basic of terms, a good replacement for traditional crowdfunding?
I remember when I wrote this article in 20, I think it was 20, that last year, 2022, there was this protest going on in Canada then. These truckers that were protesting, I think they were protesting COVID rules, and they decided to block the highway. And they created a GoFundMe account, which the government froze. Like, I'm sure the government had their reasons for freezing this account, but why should the government decide, okay, your GoFundMe is wrong and this person's GoFundMe is right? You get. So these are the things that blockchain technology like cancels out, because with a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization where different people can put their resources together under one organization. It's like a GoFundMe, but without the centralized nature of GoFundMe. It's just one person creates a group, and different people donate money to a cause to it, and then they have the same equal amount of say and stuff. So this is another way that um, blockchain technology is changing traditional crowdfunding. So if people, for instance, want to crowdfund towards a goal, which the government might not agree with, although if it's not illegal though, they can easily do this and just meet a community of fellow-minded individuals and raise funds, and everybody gets a say on how the money is spent. And most importantly, there are no fees, because traditional crowdfunding mediums charge fees. I think GoFundMe charges around 3% of all donations. But over here, it's completely free, and you raise money for a goal that everybody is happy towards. It's like the opportunities in blockchain are so massive. That's why I said I'm an enthusiast, because I'm always out there looking at things that are possible with blockchain technology and things that we haven't even explored. I mean, like a few years ago, it was NFTs, and then there's DeFi now. That there are so many other areas that I feel like the potentials have not been touched, and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds in this area. So that's why I wrote about this article on Cointelegraph.
I'm actually so pleased that this is another use case for blockchain that
Mhm.
you've established even here in an article and it's been published. There's also people that are looking to go into blockchain in terms of as an investment to yield or to be able to create a lending platform. For instance, when it comes to staking, you have an article on that as well, I believe, that was on
Yeah,
Hackernoon.
yeah.
Staking, yield farming, lending. A home for passive income. Now, whenever we hear the term passive income these days, a lot of people sort of shy away and shun it. But we've read in so many of the books by billionaires that having a passive income or an income that grows while you sleep is probably the quickest way to get your billions. Let's talk a little bit about this issue of staking and how it actually works in DeFi.
Okay, so just before I come to speaking on DeFi and youth farming, there was something that came to my mind while you were speaking about how people have been like using blocking technologies for remedy everyday problems. There is um, one thing I noticed about young Nigerians last year and early this year, during the dollar scarcity, when most people were trying to convert their money to a much more stable currency, now it was a bit difficult to get dollar in the market. So most people just moved to crypto exchanges and bought USDT instead, stable coins. This it's like it's pegged to the dollar, but it's not physical cash and it's easier to buy and store and sell instantly.
Mm.
Now coming back to passive income streams, this was my first experience of DeFi when I got into DeFi in 2021. And I started staking. So staking is basically like fixed deposit, the types to do in bank, but with better incentives. So you
Mm.
go to a project that has a liquidity pool. The liquidity pool is like the vault of the project where their assets and their treasury is. Now, because this project has different trading pairs, you provide liquidity to that vault. Let's assume, for instance, the project is selling, they are trading BTC USDT, for instance, or USDT Ethereum,
Mm.
and you have Ethereum. So you stake your Ethereum in their liquidity pool, which is their vault, and you earn interest from this because they trade those and then they get interest from trading them with other people. So what they pay to you is the trading fee that people pay to trade those assets in their pool. It's like using a bank scenario where you deposit money in the bank and then they
Mm.
use your money to give out loans to people. When these people pay back the interest on these loans, the bank gives you a part of that interest, but just that they pay something very minimal.
Yeah.
In cryptocurrencies, the interests are quite high. You see some pools it has had 17%, 20%, 30%, even 40, 50%. So it's like a whole different niche entirely on its own. Staking,
It
yield
is.
farming, and all these things in DeFi.
Have you ever had any issues with staking? Has anything ever gone wrong in any particular currency you staked?
Well, with crypto, things always go wrong. Okay, not things always go wrong, but things sometimes go wrong. So
Okay.
it's when we engage in these transactions, we do so with this mindset that it could be there could be risks involved, and we're ready for the risk. But I think the issue I had then was I entered into the staking pool. I staked my currencies, and I staked it for a longer period than I would have wanted to because I had a target in mind.
Okay.
But while the asset was staked, the price in the market dropped significantly. So by the time I got my assets back after the 30-day staking period, yes, the unit of the asset had increased, but the monetary value had dropped. So it's
Hmm.
like you had more units of something, but for less the price because the price in the market had dropped. So those are some of the issues that's
So
one of
it
the issues I've had with
so
staking.
it didn't disappear. It didn't puff into thin air. It was just that the value of it eventually dropped. Yes.
There are people, no, it didn't disappear. There are people that have had other issues with staking, but me, for the most common issue I've had is drop in value while the asset is staked.
Now, there's an article you put together in May about, Ethereum, sort of like an Ethereum versus Bitcoin kind of article, but Bitcoin's growing DeFi ecosystem. Your
Yeah,
question
okay.
was, should Ethereum be worried? You did this in May. Now
Yeah.
I'm not sure Ethereum should be worried at all, based on the fact that things like NFTs have been pegged to the Ethereum blockchain,
Yeah.
and so many other different things like smart contracts can be enacted on the blockchain, on the Ethereum blockchain as well. So I'm just wondering where you were going with that particular article, or was it just to catch
Well,
people's eyes?
I won't say just catch people's eye, but the thing about being a writer is you need to find topics that make someone to want to like read. Okay, what's this topic about? I want to see what it's about. But it doesn't mean it was a clickbait. The article actually had it had substance on why Bitcoin would actually give Ethereum a match for its money. But I think at this point, everybody in crypto agrees that there is no coin that is ever going to match Ethereum in
Hmm.
its vast DeFi ecosystem. But the point I
Hmm.
was trying to make was Bitcoin
Are
could
you
actually give
sure
Ethereum a
about
match.
that? Should we start this conversation now?
We have had so many so-called Ethereum killers that ended up dying themselves. They never got to kill Ethereum. So I
Okay.
don't think there's any project so far that I've seen in the market that has that potential to match, not to talk of overtaking Ethereum in
Okay.
terms of its
Okay.
vast ecosystem.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. The article went on to explain what DeFi was all about, and comparing, Bitcoin DeFi via side chains. Now, there are some things that I know Bitcoin was not able to do in the very beginning, and that has changed now. And I'm
Yeah.
using layman's terms because of the average person watching. But it does feel like Ethereum evolved over time. Now, when it comes to remittances, which do you prefer? Do you prefer blockchain, rather Bitcoin blockchain or Ethereum blockchain?
Oh, okay, that's a tough one.
Hmm.
Uh, well, probably Bitcoin. And
Aha!
it's not because I prefer Bitcoin over Ethereum, but because the few times I've received remittances, it's mostly been Bitcoin, and it's because the people that sent those assets insisted I had to be Bitcoin because they were not very familiar with other cryptocurrencies, so they use
Even
Bitcoin. So that was
Ethereum? Even Ethereum?
yeah, it's a wild world out there. Ethereum is like they've heard about it, but they've not used it. But almost everyone that's ever used or
Hmm.
interacted with cryptocurrencies has bought or sold Bitcoin at some point. It's like a
So
normal thing
even
out there.
though, so even though it said that Ethereum could never be killed, you still prefer to do your remittances and your transactions with Bitcoin.
I prefer to do my transactions and remittances with USDT because they are more stable,
Okay, okay, stable coins. But there
stable
are
coins.
some stable coins that sort of lost their stability, so to speak, some time back. Don't you agree?
Yeah, we had UST, Lunar stablecoin that crashed in spectacular fashion and tanked the
Mm,
entire market with it. Like
mm,
that, that incident still gives me PTSD because I was watching the entire market go down as one stablecoin was going down. So it shows just how fragile and how fragile this whole ecosystem still is.
mm.
But I believe with time we'll have better builders and better foundations in place to build projects so that they don't fall or crash the way they did.
Mm. I was actually so interested in this particular topic, and I'm really pleased you were able to share on this today. Now, there are loads of articles you can check out written by Chinonso Okonkwo. If you check him out on LinkedIn, you can find him. He is tagged as blockchain and DeFi content marketer and research writer there on LinkedIn. Because there are quite a few Chinonso Okonkwas online there as well.
Ah,
In
it's
case
actually.
but I have to appreciate you for coming through. There's still quite a few questions I wanted to ask on the impact of the issue of transparency, and that's where I want to wrap it up. The issue of transparency and the potential challenges with giving the people this much power, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. That's a good question, but I don't think I think my thoughts towards this has always been that we shouldn't punish the many for the sins of the few. We A lot of times when government agencies want to crack down on cryptocurrency, the language they use is that people use it for money laundering, it it's used to like because they can't trace the money, so you don't know who is sending from point A to point B. So there's a lot of sense in that, if I could use that term. But at the same time, there are a lot of people out there using cryptocurrencies for legitimate purposes. And as much as we think transparency is a good thing, it shouldn't be at the cost of people's privacy and anonymity. Some people just want to carry out transactions anonymously, not because they have any ulterior motives, or because if blockchain doesn't have the anonymity that originally comes with them, why am I using it? I might as well just stick to using a regular bank because that's what we know it's for. So I think that's also crucial. Transparency is important. It's but that's why we also have ledgers. Recently, something happened on Twitter recently. I was on Twitter recently where a popular influencer stole cryptocurrencies from somebody's account. You know, this thing we said about people. Yeah, so this person was his mentee at some point. So this person gave up
Okay.
his seed phrase to this influencer back then last year. But the mentee didn't realize that someday he was going to be big in crypto space. So he forgot to change his wallet. Now the influencer checked into the wallet, realized that there was a lot of money there, and then just moved it to his own account. Now,
Mm.
look at what happened here, which is why I think cryptocurrency is actually quite transparent. The guy whose asset was stolen simply copied the address where the asset was transferred to and went to the
Mm.
blockchain and searched. He was able to carry out some other on-chain analysis, which it's a bit complicated, but actually not that complicated. And discovered that this was the person that stole his assets, and it was bright as day that this was who actually stole the assets. So I believe there are enough on-chain analytical means out there to track and trace cryptocurrency wallets. We don't need to give up our anonymity because we want to be more
Mm.
transparent than we already are.
I know there's still so much at the back end that we could discuss on this particular topic, but of course, time is already fast spent. I have to say a big thank you to you, Chinonso, for talking to us today on the Blockchain Mastery Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, then. Now, Chinonso is available on LinkedIn to answer your questions if you have any. Of course, our comment section and our comment section is available for you to post your comments wherever you're watching or listening to us from. We will do what we can to respond to you. And of course, if you would like to be on the Blockchain Mastery Podcast, all you have to do is send us an email and we will get back to you. The email is very simple: dynamitepodcastnetwork@gmail.com. That's dynamitepodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Chinaso.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
Take care. Now, before we wrap up on the Blockchain Mastery Podcast, there is, of course, always news in the world of blockchain that we like to share with you. And hey, when it comes to articles that we read online, some of them just really hit you in the face and you're like, wow, really, did that just happen? I'm always interested in finding out more about what's happening. Now, apparently, the Binance CEO warns of phishing scams as Uniswap founder gets hacked. Now, Binance CEO Chengpeng CZ Zhao, that's his latest figure on the cryptocurrency industry. He warns that there's an increasing number of phishing attacks, and he took to Twitter on July 21st to warn his readers about phishing and other social engineering scams. He also recommends that cryptocurrency exchange users rely on hardware devices for two-factor authentication instead of using the mobile carrier-based 2FA. For instance, best to enable 2FA with a YubiKey on all your crypto exchanges. Now, the Binance CEO's warning came shortly after Uniswap founder Hayden Adams had his Twitter account compromised on July 20th. Now, after taking over Adams' account, the attacker attempted to scam his followers through malicious links posted on his page. Now, members of crypto Twitter quickly identified and warned others against the scam, and Adams subsequently restored access to his account in a matter of hours. But he also promised to follow up with updates when ready. The number of social engineering attacks in the crypto industry has unfortunately been rising. Now, early July, Layer Zero CEO Brian Pellegrino became a victim of a SIM swap attack, which allowed hackers to briefly take over his Twitter as well. The executive suggested that attackers use his speaker badge at the Collision conference, which he happened to put in the trash. Hmm. Blockchain security experts say the trend of social engineering hacks like SIM swap attacks could continue to gain stream in the near future. And according to Slow Mist Chief Information Security Officer, SIM swapping also doesn't require high level technical skills. After Adams reported he was back on Twitter, uh, 23PDS also referred to CoinTelegraph's recent coverage of SIM swap hacks. And well, there was an interview he did the week before about the current state of the SIM swap hijacking, and he didn't realize that there were several attacks so soon. And yeah, one core protection measure recommended is to take um, restricted uses of SIM card based methods for 2FA authentication. So you need to instead of using apps like Google Authenticator, use something physical. Now, yeah, we also have some news here in Nigeria. Now, the Nigerian social payments app shut down some crypto exchange services. Apparently, there's a bundle. Bundle has announced it's shutting down its crypto exchange arm. Now, this came out on July 20th. The statement was released on the company's blog. Now, Bundle said it would cease operations of its exchange services as part of the shareholders' decision to restructure the business and focus on cash link. Now, in the statement, the company noted that the decision by its shareholders is as a result of the observed growth of Web3 and blockchain community, and they needed to focus on payment solutions that meet the ecosystem's needs. Now, it's confirmed that users wouldn't be able to sign up to Bundle, deposit assets into their Bundle wallet, swap assets in their Bundle wallet, or withdraw with CashLink if they do not have Nigerian Naira or other fiat on Bundle. And according to the statement, all Bundle users are advised to withdraw all their assets in the app on or before September 12th, 2023. The company specified steps to make sure its users in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and other Francophone speaking countries can withdraw all their assets successfully, and users in those locations can withdraw their funds from Bundle on any preferred exchange. Yeah, so of course, you can withdraw with CashLink as well, or maybe through P2P Express. All right, then I'm going to be wrapping it up on the Blockchain Mastery podcast for today. Can't wait to be back. There's still loads of great conversations to have very, very soon. I'll be looking out for your messages, comments, and contributions right there on any of the platforms you're listening or watching us from. My name, once again, is Titila.